In that last video, we talked about digital IDs, how that's an important tool in the toolbox for authoritarian regimes going forward into the future. I mean, whoever controls that controls the ball game. We're talking about biometric identification, AI aggregated information on everybody in the world. So if you haven't seen that, go check that out. But today we're going to talk about another tool in the toolbox to bring about these police state authoritarian regimes. And one of those tools, not the only one, but one of them is the useful idiots called Antifa. And I don't think that Antifa is created by the government. I don't think that they're George Soros funded. Actually, I differ with like Fox News on that, and the government's kind of putting out those talking points, how they have this big funding. There may be some money funneling in like that, but honestly, I think they're self-funded because I believe these people actually are true believers in their ideology. It really seems like they have a cohesive ideology, not necessarily a cohesive organization structure. So yes, I think they are decentralized like they say they are. And, so that they can say, well, it doesn't exist. But it does exist. Of course, we've seen it. We've seen it in the streets, and we've seen what they do, right? And they cover their faces. They wear all the black, and then they go out and they kind of do all the violent things that we see at all the protests. So we're not talking about, this is not to be confused with like Democratic Socialists of America or something like that. These are the type of people that would organize King's protests and things. No, and Antifa is different because while those people are brainwashed just as much, they don't really get violent. So all of this comes into play. There's two ways that I think that Antifa can be, the tool to bring in an authoritarian regime. Now, the first way is they could succeed. They could actually succeed in what they say they want to do, to basically overthrow the government as it is, to overthrow capitalism, and just basically bring it all down. Because what would come up from that would be a new situation. Whenever you have a new situation, probably largely based on Marxist ideology, you'd have some collectivism thrown in there. You'd probably have an emerging authoritarian figure, probably, that would come out of that. Because while it's decentralized now, when you're fighting against, you can be decentralized. But when you're building up, you almost always have to have some kind of leadership. And without that leadership, nothing's going to happen. Somebody's going to always fill the void, in other words. It's happened in history several times, and we can point to those, in future videos. Where a leader has come up, this collectivist mentality has taken place, and then, of course, millions have starved as a result of that in certain regimes. And, I could get into that, but we're talking about Antifa today. So that's the first way I think that an authoritarian regime could come forth from the Antifa ideology. They could be successful. And then what would happen after that would be, I think that the current Antifa would probably be wiped out by that regime because they're too rebellious. They're too much of a dissident, right? And you can't have dissidents in the future if you have an authoritarian regime, which is probably what would come out of what they would build or what would be built if they actually succeeded. So that's the first way. The second way is what they're doing right now, agitating things. We've had this problem, reaction, solution thing happen over and over and over again in history, and in our recent history especially. So you had the Democrats, for example, in the last administration allowing tons of illegal immigrants come through the border, and they encouraged it to be illegal immigration. Now, they did this knowing, think about this, that those illegal immigrants would end up being apprehended by ICE at some point in time in the future. They knew that. So the Democrats don't care about these people. They don't care about these people. They were using these people as pawns. Using these people as pawns in order to bring them in, knowing that the next administration would go after them using ICE, knowing that it would have to be heavy-handed. It's not going to look good. You have a lot of soft power saying, hey, you need to stop this. We need to stop this. This is not humane. Here comes Antifa. We're going to fight them, right? So anti-ICE, fighting them. I think somebody got arrested just the other day for, I believe, attacking ICE or whatever. And I believe this was one of the first Antifa terrorist, whatever, arrest. Now, they've designated Antifa as a terrorist organization. This is another thing that, talking about bringing in an authoritarian regime. Now we got domestic terrorism, right? Domestic terrorism. So this is the excuse at this point to go after people in the country. Now, they're not going to use it right now. They're probably not going to abuse that. They'll probably, because they have actual target they can go after. Because these people are actually violent. And so they do have plans to do things. You can go after them, you can charge them, and it's justified. It's justified. So at this point, what they've done is justify the development of, the identification of Americans as potentially terrorist, right? And now all of the forces of the police state, all the AI systems, all the surveillance systems can be implemented on Americans in a new way, thanks to Antifa, because they do act in terroristic ways. Now, I didn't think that they needed to be designated as terrorists. Personally, I believe all that had to happen was police actually need to prosecute the crimes one by one. So somebody breaks a window, prosecute the crime. Somebody throws a rock at an ice truck and assaults somebody, or hurts a member of law enforcement or something, prosecute the crime. Go after them aggressively as police, maybe sheriffs even. This is a choice that police departments, sheriff's departments have made. So you notice that most of this violence actually happens in Democrat-run cities. This is not a coincidence, right? So they have soft power, and they have political power as well, in the sense that they're being allowed to basically run around and do things, and the police are, not very heavy-handed at all, kind of allowing it to happen. This is going to, force the hand of the president. Well, they know they have a president in office right now who's willing to deploy the National Guard, okay? So now you have National Guard be deployed. Now, don't forget, guys, this is not the first time National Guard will have ever been deployed. If this happened, you had Kent State, which did not turn out well. You had the 90s, there were some riots in the 90s. There's other times National Guard's been deployed before. We don't like to see it. We don't like to see military in the streets. I'm not really for it. I would rather police actually just do the job. So, combination of the Democrat mayors, Democrat governors, not enforcing the laws, allowing people to run around, people like Antifa, run around and do all these crimes, be violent towards people. People will call for law and order, where it should have been there to begin with. And this forces the hand of the president. Now he's sending, National Guard troops. Now you have National Guard troops in the streets of America, and you have Americans, opposing National Guard, maybe even police forces opposing the National Guard, trying to set up the situation of the civil conflict. And I think that is by design. I don't think Antifa is by design in the sense that they're created to do this. I just think they're useful idiots. They actually believe what they believe, and they're stupid enough to go up against the government, and they're going to find out, right? So what's going to happen is they're probably going to, they've been allowed to do this. They've been allowed to exist for this period of time, I think, in order to justify what's going to happen next. And you're probably already seeing it. They're going to go after them, as if they're terrorists. They may allow them to continue on, because this will just give the government more power, more authority to implement surveillance systems, police, heavy-handed presence of police in certain areas, or of course, use of National Guard in the streets, which I don't really know what they actually could do, because they go in the streets and sometimes they don't even, I don't even think they have ammunition, right, in their tools, right? So I think it's like, it really puts everybody in a bad position. So what happens when one of them gets assaulted, right? What happens when some Antifa member goes up to National Guard and assaults them, and then this starts another incident, and it's not good. So basically, there's no real good outcome from what they're doing. They're not going to create some utopian society. They're not helping fight fascism, right? They're using fascist tactics, actually. So, if you want to shut down your opponent, a lot of people, like I said, a lot of the people that are adjacent to Antifa, basically share that ideology, are the type of people who were happy when Charlie Kirk was taken out. Happy about it. They don't believe in free speech, man. They don't believe in freedom. They don't believe in free speech. If they win, I'm not saying they could win, but just theoretically, just throwing out, if they succeeded, you're going to have a totalitarian state. It's just going to be in that ideology. So it's not good. There's no good way around it, but I believe they are useful idiots. I believe they're brainwashed, and really, at the end of the day, they're going to be used to bring in more powerful structures. And when the more powerful structures are brought in and established, no matter what they are, whether they're the opposing structures or whether they're what Antifa thinks that they're going to create after the fact of, I guess, taking everything out. Either way, I believe the current Antifa members would be eliminated from the situation because they're too dissident. They're too, rebellious or whatever. And so they're not going to be allowed in that kind of a regime. I don't know if they think they're going to be in control or not, but they're never going to get control. They're never going to be in control of anything. And so they're really just mostly a danger to themselves, to their own country, wherever they live, and to everybody else, in the sense that they're now going to bring down this heavy-handed kind of authoritarian activities, by design, I guess, but like I said, I don't think that they've just been created by a government or funded by Soros or anything like that. I just believe this ideology, which has been around for a long, long time, is cohesive in and of itself, and it lends itself to this existential type of activity that you have to somehow get violent, right? And that's how they operate. So we'll talk more about it in the future. Most likely we'll probably cover Antifa a little bit in the future. We'll talk about some of the past regimes that have come out of that type of ideology and how well that worked. There's a lot to talk about, but I just wanted to break the ice on this. I think these guys are being used. They're being played, really. They're being played, and they're never going to have actual control, even if they succeed in what they're doing, especially if they succeed in what they're doing. They would have been better off if they just did nothing and allow the due process to work itself out, and then maybe fight through courts and things like that. What they're going to do now is going to bring down a heavy hand, but that's what they want to justify more radicalization of more people on the left. You see what I'm saying? So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how the Overton window has shifted to the left, how that happened using college loans and college indoctrination, essentially. It's statistically proven that colleges lean left, the faculty, the professors lean left, a factor of most of the time 3-to-1, sometimes 4-to-1, left versus right. Not saying that a right-wing ideology is the answer, guys. I'm not. I think that authoritarians can use both, because at the top, I believe they work together. As long as they're in control and, the people are just under control, then I believe that it doesn't really matter, right? But anyway, talk about the left-right paradigm in another video. I'm going to call it a day. Kind of running along. It's about 13 minutes, about 14 minutes on the video. So I'm just going to cut this off. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you made it this far, consider subscribing. I'm sure I probably lost a couple of subscribers here too. So that's awesome. Just weeding them out. All right. Appreciate you, and I'll catch you on the next one.